we have rebooted back into Vista. We disabled user account control. Now remember that, the substitute user account in Linux or sudo, that prevents a malicious script or Trojan from uh, wreaking havoc or damaging the system by requiring, the user's compliance or interaction. So hopefully, if the user sees something funny going on, they won't click on OK. But it can be quite annoying when, performing repetitive tasks or trying to get things done quickly. So I prefer to disable it. If you do, just be careful where you surf and what you download. In addition, remember that we disabled the gadget toolbar and removed the gadgets. That freed some memory and CPU cycles. We went over to Control Panel, and in Control Panel, we modified the look and feel to the classic view. We came over here, and in this case, we added the logon to our startup menu, and we went over and turned off personalized menus. So in this case, I like to see all of my programs and all of the applications that I have. I don't like anything to be hidden from me. Another thing that I like to do, and this is again just a personal preference, but that's to go and customize my menu setups. And I will go into Vista or XP and just sort of add my own folders and different programs in those folders. I'll file them away. So now there's a few other things we can do to enhance performance a bit. I'm going to go ahead and turn this nice shell off here. It looks pretty, it's beautiful, but I don't have as many resources on this system. So I can tweak the performance a bit by getting rid of some of those animations in that shell. I'm just going to check adjust for best performance. It'll make my desktop look a little bit plainer, but it'll also make my system run a little bit smoother. So it's just nice to have that option if you need it. And in addition, there are other things that you can do. If you go to advanced, it's generally best to allow Windows to, modify your paging file or to adjust your paging file according to what you need for virtual memory. But one of the things that you can do to tweak performance that I do sometimes is if you set the same size for your paging file. In this case, usually you want about twice the available RAM. So I've got 512 megabytes of RAM here. I know, not a lot. In this case, I'm in a virtual machine that has 2 gigabytes of RAM, but I've only allocated 512 megabytes of RAM for this Vista machine. But about twice that much. And then if I were to go ahead and set that, what that does, or the way that tweaks performance, is a lot of times when Windows manages your swap file or your paging file, as it balloons in size or as it decreases, as more or less virtual memory is needed, that can be a very performance-intensive task. There's a lot of I/O operation going on there with that page file. So if you set it to a specific size, that's if you have the hard drive space, you can get a little bit more performance out of your system. Now, the things to be cautious about here are you don't want to make it too small because you'll quickly run out of virtual memory. And then, of course, the other caution is if you make it too large, you may consume too much of your hard drive space. And you may need that for programs or applications, things like that. Data execution prevention, DEP. Again, that's a useful security feature. You'll find similar features in SUSE versions of Linux, Fedora, and Ubuntu, but basically the ability to recognize signatures, applications, and programs that could be dangerous or potentially harmful to the system, and to prevent them from running until the user decides otherwise. We can tweak the performance here for programs or background services. In this case, for a workstation or client operating system, we want to focus on the applications at hand and give the system performance to that. If it were a server operating system, we may choose background services. If it were a web server, or file server, routing and remote access, a VPN server, something like that. So we tweak the performance a little bit. You'll notice that you still have the remote features that you had in XP Professional. You can create and send remote assistance invitations via email or as a file, and somebody can use that to connect to your PC. We can go over here and you can set the time limit just like you could in XP for how long they may or may not connect to your system. That's a very helpful and also potentially dangerous feature. In addition, you can, you've got the remote desktop and connections via RDP just like you had in XP Professional. The most secure setting, of course, by default is don't allow connections to this computer. Um, in this case, allow connections from computers running any version of remote desktop. That's not quite so secure. Um, and then network level authentication. This would be a little bit of a compromise or a little bit more secure. Um, in this case, I'm just being warned about my power options, but I would normally select a remote user. So let's say I wanted to add myself, so I could connect to my PC maybe from home or do something remotely to the PC. In this case now, only I have permission with my access token, my user account and credentials to connect to and remotely administer this PC. I'm going to set it back or drop it back to the more secure setting there. In this case, system protection and system restore. I can utilize system restore points. I'm going to go ahead and open up my system restore settings. If I wanted to go to a different restore point, I could. This is a very useful feature in both XP Professional and Vista, but it's not foolproof. If you get infected with a bad virus, a lot of times it makes things worse because you go to restore it to a previous point of functionality and you find that that also was infected. And so you clean the virus and then you restore and you can't get rid of it, and the next thing you know, it's right back on the system. Also, if something severe happens to your system, your file system is severely damaged or the system becomes unbootable, then the restore points won't be as useful to you. Again, what I would recommend is doing a full and complete image copy of your system once it's installed and in a pristine condition, uninfected, all your software is configured the way that you like, and the settings, and it would only take you 10-15 minutes to restore, say, a 20 gigabyte partition if you ghosted it to an image. And that's foolproof. You wouldn't have to install Vista first and then use the backup utility to restore various backup files. You don't have to worry about something crippling the system beyond the capabilities of setting a system restore point. So in this case, those are just some of the options. I'm going to turn system restore off. Again, I don't really use it. I'm just very careful to back up. And anything that I have that is important, I keep redundant copies. For system restores to minimize downtime or servers, I make image copies so that I can have things restored in maybe 15-20 minutes. It's that I'm sure that's a matter of personal preference as well, but I've just found that sometimes the system restore point can be a source of false hope, and I kind of want something more. I want a sure sense that if data is important, that it's in a safe place. Actually, multiple safe places. Hopefully, there's some redundancy there. Device manager still there. I'm in device manager, and again, if we wanted to look at system resources, I'm kind of running this to a virtual machine here, but in this case, we can get memory addresses, interrupts, IRQs, if it pertained to it, direct memory access channel settings, and PCI steering. Here's my host name, same place as it was in XP Professional 2000 Pro work groups, or if I were going to join a domain, I could select a domain and join a domain there. Nice, system, a nice summary of the system information here, my CPUs, the amount of available memory that I have. Interesting down here, I like this option. In this case, again, I didn't exactly want to share my install key with the rest of the planet, so I didn't type that in on the install, but if I need to now, I can go and type that key in and register the product. Or I could change the product key if I upgrade to a different version, or decide to use another key. But it is nice to have that 30-day trial, so to speak. There's a little bit of lenience there. Our Microsoft cuts us a little bit of slack in terms of coming up with a licensing solution and kind of figuring out exactly what version we're willing to pay for, or how much we're willing to pay for their operating system. This is very robust. It's very sleek.